Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the village board meeting to order for the date of November 3rd, 2025. And if you could all please rise and join the board with the pledge, it'd be great. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And Maggie, if you could please call the roll.
Trustee LaBedz.
Here.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Here.
Trustee Santa Maria.
Here.
Trustee Bertucci. Trustee Gilbert.
Here.
Trustee Zyck.
Here.
Trustee Dunnington.
Here.
Trustee Manganaro.
Here.
President Tinaglia.
Here. Thank you, Maggie. So we have two sets of minutes to approve. And the first one is from October 6, 25. Are there any changes or anyone who needs to pass or correct anything on the board up here? Seeing none. Anybody from the audience? Okay, is there a motion to approve the 10:26 meeting minutes?
I'll move to approve the 10/26/2025 meeting minutes.
Oh, I meant 10:06. Did I say 10:26?
Did.
Okay,
So
10:06.
10/6/2020. Did I say 10/25?
My mistake, sorry.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by trustee LaBedz, seconded by trustee Zyck. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And then for the 10/20/25, and I'll recuse myself from those. Is there anything that needs to be changed or adjusted, or anyone need to recuse themselves on the board? If anyone in the audience, anything need to be corrected? If not, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the meeting minutes of October 20th, 2025.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Dunnington and seconded by trustee Santa Maria. All those in favor say aye.
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 I am recusing myself, is what I meant to say. Motion carries. And then we have accounts payable, and for that, I will call on trustee Schwingbeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move that we approve the warrant register with a check date of October 30th, 2025, in the amount of $9,117,687.30.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Schwingbeck, seconded by trustee LaBedz. Any comments or questions beyond that? Anyone from the audience? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Schwingbeck.
Yes?
Trustee LaBedz.
Yes.
Trustee Gilbert.
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro.
Aye.
Trustee Dunnington.
Yes.
Trustee Zyck.
Yes.
Trustee Santa Maria.
Yes.
President Tinaglia.
Yes. All right, motion carries. Great. And then we have recognitions and communications, and for tonight, we have a discussion that we're going to have, and I'm going to call on trustee Dunnington for that.
Thank you, Mayor. This weekend, the Village of Wheeling shared on social media that federal civil immigration enforcement requested to use the parking lot of their fire station number 44 for their activities. So tonight, the Wheeling Village Board is voting on a resolution to formally prohibit the use of village property for civil immigration enforcement staging or operations. They are joining several other communities that have passed similar resolutions or ordinances. I'm asking the Arlington Heights Village Board to do the same tonight. I believe a resolution or policy like this does a couple of important things for our community. It gives clear direction to village staff on how to respond in a similar situation. It protects village staff from unintentionally violating the Trust Act. It protects our village resources. Our property taxes pay for our police, fire, and public works to do the work they need to do to operate our village, not immigration enforcement. It protects the trust between our immigrant communities and local law enforcement that is essential to effective community policing. It also promotes safety because public safety is best achieved through trust and collaboration between village residents and local government. Next, I'm asking for the village to share information on the village website and social media about the Illinois Trust Act and the Way Forward Act, including how it relates to the work of the Arlington Heights Police Department. I believe residents need as much accurate information as possible. And then finally, I'm asking for the village to host several Know Your Rights training sessions. One session focused on residents and one for businesses, churches, and nonprofits. Again, accurate information is important and everyone deserves access to the knowledge that protects justice for all. I believe taking these steps will help ensure that constitutional rights are protected, as well as protecting village staff and resources. And I do have one question for village staff or Mr. Passman. I was wondering if you could share the difference between a village policy, a resolution, and ordinance to help us decide what would be the best steps for the board to take if they choose to.
Thank you, Trustee Dunnington. I suppose probably the simplest answer is not much, in the sense that if any of them are adopted by the village board, that would have the force of being a pronouncement of this body. Under municipal law, an ordinance is for lack of a better term, it's the most serious form of a legislative action by the board. That doesn't mean that you can't have weighty approvals that don't take the form of an ordinance. Village code amendments are always done by ordinance. Certain types of approvals by law are required by ordinance. I don't know if any of these actions are the will of the board. I don't know if it makes a lot of difference to me from a legal perspective what form it takes. That's
If I could jump in, I think in terms of the village's practice, what we typically do is a policy is something that's established by the, executive team of the village, kind of below the board level, that, we will engage in this policy. And these are things that are enforced generally by village staff in that regard. And they're not something that leads to most typically any kind of penalty or judicial action. Resolution typically is kind of a statement of the will of the board. And, as you noted, it can be a direction to staff. It can be kind of just putting the community on notice that this is our intention. An ordinance is generally going to refer to something that is going to create an official rule that, if violated, could be cited, either at an administrative adjudicative level or a circuit court level, if it were, found to be a violation. Those are the variations that we typically use internally.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Dunnington. So Randy, maybe it would be a good idea, real quick, to share at least a couple things, a little bit for everyone in the audience and anyone watching at home. What is the Trust Act? And after that, what are staff's responsibilities in pursuant to the Trust Act?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. And I'd be happy to talk about the Way Forward Act in general terms as well that Trustee Dunnington referenced. But
Okay.
The Illinois Trust Act, and it's as amended by the Illinois Way Forward Act, clearly states that a law enforcement agency, including the Arlington Heights Police Department, or official of the Arlington Heights Police Department, may not participate, support, or assist in any capacity with an immigration agent's enforcement operations. And there are specific prohibitions, including sharing information with immigration agents, stopping, arresting, or detaining a person based on their citizenship status or immigration status, complying with immigration detainers that are put out by a federal agency, inquiring about or investigating the citizenship or immigration status or place of birth of any individual in the agency or official's custody who has been otherwise stopped or detained by the agency or official, transferring individuals into immigration custody without a criminal warrant, allowing immigration agents access to state and local facilities for investigative or enforcement purposes, or entering into any kind of an immigration enforcement agreements with immigration authorities, meaning that we will provide facilities where their detainees may be detained. Those are all things that are prohibited by state law. So these are things that our police department by law cannot engage in based on that. We also kind of routinely follow the Illinois Attorney General's office guidelines on the interpretation of the act. In terms of, what we do in these types of situations, again, we don't get involved. If one of our police officers does observe a federal agent in Arlington Heights engage in civil immigration enforcement, or as recently happened, would be dispatched to a location as a result of a 911 call, the officer would simply verify that these individuals are legitimate law enforcement personnel and then clear the scene without assisting or becoming involved in the mission. Those are essentially the functions of that law, and those are some of the things that we do in response to the Trust Act, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that everyone in the room plus at home understood that this is, we are not participating, right? I mean,
Correct.
In simple terms, we're trying to steer clear of it being involved with anything having to do with an arrest or detainment or anything like that. Was that?
We are required to steer clear.
We're
It's not even, it's not a question of intent or policy or ordinance. It is a question of state law.
Okay. And then two other things that Trustee Dunnington asked about was sharing information on the website, and then having some programming where people can learn about their rights and so forth. Is that something we can do?
Something that we legally can do. It's kind of up to the will of the board. Certainly, we can share information on our website. That's easy enough to do. If that's something the board would like us to do. I know that the library, we don't typically provide programming as a village, but I know that the Arlington Heights Memorial Library is hosting an event later this month on that topic, and folks could go there. But again, if it's something that the board wanted us to do, we certainly could.
And you said it interestingly. Have we not ever done anything like that in the past?
Not those types of programs, no. We do programming related to seniors at the senior center. We do, obviously, we'll have open house meetings and those types of things for residents related to development projects. But I mean, it's kind of the things that are central to our mission. I'm not aware of any programs of that nature that we've given that on a specific topic like that. I mean, I could be not remembering something, but it's not something we typically do. Occasionally, we have talked to the library, are you going to do an event on this? And they said, sure, we'd be happy to, just because they have a catalog of events, and it's something that's kind of, it's a known place in the community where people go to seek information. Again, with the exception of the senior center, where we do senior-related programming.
Okay. Well, I think let's open it up to the board. I know that there's enough of us here that want to talk about, so anyone want to share a thought or two, feel free. None?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Go on. I didn't think it was going to be none. Trustee Santamaria, please go ahead.
Sure, thank you. I do think tonight's discussion is an important one, not for just Arlington Heights, but we're obviously seeing it around our entire region. That the past several weeks, we've seen an increase in federal civil law enforcement activity here in Arlington Heights, but also our nearby communities. And these incidences have created confusion, fear, and at times placed local employees in difficult positions where the line between federal and municipal authority has become blurred. So as local leaders, I think that we have an ethical and operational responsibility to make sure that that doesn't happen here. Our village employees, whether in public safety or public works or administration, should never be left uncertain about how to respond if federal agencies request the use of village property or facilities. And they also deserve clear guidance, training, and protection so that they can carry out their duties without fear of legal or professional repercussions. At the same time, I think it's also we have a responsibility to our residents. When people in our neighborhoods see federal civil enforcement activity in or around Arlington Heights, it can send the wrong message. And that message is that local law enforcement is either complicit and or involved in actions that create fear in the community. And so I agree with Trustee Dunnington's suggestions of protecting our employees by hosting a training, ensuring that possibly that they have the ability to go to a training as well, and publicly providing clear information and resources.
Thank you, Trustee Santamaria. Anyone else?
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank
Trustee
you, President
Manganaro.
Tenaya. Just going to say broadly, I agree with trustees Dunnington and Santa Maria, so I will do my best not to repeat what they've said. I will add a little bit of an update. About an hour ago, the Wheeling Village Board passed a resolution barring federal civil immigration enforcement from their property. I believe it is the right thing for Arlington Heights to do, to follow suit for a variety of reasons. And we would be following suit with now more municipalities in the area that I can count on my hands. One of the first is we are the city of good neighbors. These actions are having an immense impact on our neighbors, on our neighborhoods, on our businesses. I'm going to read a couple of quotes from an article published in the Sun-Times this morning by our two state reps, former trustees Grassi and Canty, along with State Representative Nabila Syed of Palatine. The raids have left families afraid to leave their homes, workers missing from their jobs, and children too frightened to attend class. It goes on to point out that when these things happen, our communities don't just lose valued people, employees, classmates, but we lose the trust and the cohesion that makes our communities strong. It shows up in our local communities. And schools lose funding when students don't show up. When workers don't show up, when customers don't show up, businesses lose revenue, the village loses sales tax, income tax. We are going into some very challenging discussions about budget over the next few weeks. And our staff has done an admirable job of trying to hold the line on our expenses, because we are struggling as a board with how do we provide all the services our residents need and want without increasing our property tax levy. Every dollar of economic activity that we lose due to these ongoing interferences in our communities is a dollar that we will have to make up for, either by cutting services or raising property taxes. I think we need to keep in mind that this affects all of us. And so a few other things that I would like to consider doing, some by the board. Among them, I believe that we should ask or offer our employees and residents the opportunity to go through ICER training. That's the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. They can best advise residents or employees about how to respond within legal limits to what is happening around us. I believe we should facilitate residents getting the opportunity to connect, to join rapid response teams. These are one of the ways that we can show our neighbors in immigrant communities that we stand with them. I like to talk about Always by Arlington, about how we should use our dollars to help our community. I think this is a particularly important moment for that. I'm urging that people support immigrant-owned businesses throughout our community. Many of them are losing money. One of our local grocery stores down on Algonquin Road has reported to State Grassi's office that they've lost 60% of their business with these things going on in our village. And we can help by maybe going and trying another grocery store, going and trying another restaurant. Those dollars are going to matter. And to all the members of our community, I want to say that I stand with you. I support you. I am a grandchild of immigrants. We are all immigrants. And you make our communities strong. Thank you very much.
Thanks, trustee Manganaro. Anybody else? Trustee Zyck?
Thank you, Mayor. As I'm thinking through this, and overall, I agree with the reasons, the whys for my three fellow trustees and what they're saying, why they want to do this. There are a lot of issues that are going on. You know, I was just talking with somebody over the weekend who's an immigrant, been presumably doing the right things, seemingly doing the right things, but because the person doesn't look necessarily like us, is worried about going out in the street without their papers. To, you know, are they going to be stopped, and are they going to be taken away? And it's something that they shouldn't have to go through. Nobody should have to go through that. And I think that's one of the big reasons why you're hearing a lot of this. But now we've got the why going on, and I've heard a lot of things here, and for the most part, I understand where things are going. I guess Manager Recklouse, I guess the next question is, where do we go from where do we go from here? Because, you know, one of the things that I hear is, yes, there's things for the people in the village, but one of the things I'm always concerned about too is the staff, everybody that works for the village. Do they know exactly what they're supposed to do when something comes up? And that's something I think we have to think about. Now, we don't want to give them any kind of, you know, resolution or anything that makes it harder for them to do their job. And we have to think about their safety and how it pertains to them. But I do think that there's something that we have to think about, and there's something that we have to try to figure out what's the next step. So, I know it's a long-winded question,
Okay.
but what do you see as the next step from here?
So, I mean, there are different options. You know, to Trustee Dunnington's point of providing direction to staff on what to do if, you know, ICE, you know, wanted to use, like Wheeling, one of our, you know, police station or fire station parking lots. That can be done via policy, something that we can discuss at the staff management level to develop a policy on that and, you know, be shared with the board and get feedback on. That's one avenue. It can be done on, you know, resolution basis. It could be done on an ordinance basis if the board so chose. I think you know, as you all know, I mean, the challenge with this situation is, you know, when you look at a resolution or an ordinance, is the ability to enforce it can come into question in terms of what do you do if a federal agent is not in compliant with whatever local ordinance or resolution or even policy that you set forth. What are your options for enforcing that? And those are questions that I don't have a really good answer for. There's not, it's you know, in terms of engaging it, kind of like at the Army base we have on Central, they are not subject because they're a federal agency to our zoning and building rules. And so when they do expansions or do work, they don't have to come to us for a permit. If we were to cite them for a violation of our ordinance, they wouldn't have to honor it. And so it's kind of an analogous situation that you can set those guidelines by policy, by resolution, or by ordinance. You can put signs up to signal your intent. You can provide that information to village staff so they understand what the direction is. But where it runs into trouble is how does that get enforced if you don't have a willing participant on the other side?
Yeah, enforcement, obviously enforcement's the big thing. And I don't think anybody on this, that's sitting up here too on this board, wants to stop any government entity from doing, you know, legally what they're supposed to be doing. That's not the point. It's just trying to make sure that, one, the staff knows exactly what to do and what's expected. And I think as leaders of the village, as this board is, we need to make sure that they do have everything that they need to do their jobs. And I think that's one of the big things that we have to consider. But I don't think anybody here, again, is wanting to stop the legal activities that need to be going on. We want to make sure of the other issues that can potentially come. Does it make sense? You know, Mr. Passman, does it make sense that we put something together, or your team puts something together, you put something together that kind of goes along the realm of what we're talking about here, and that we can discuss in the future?
Trustee Zyck, if it's the will of the board, we'd be happy to put something together.
Okay. Am I just talking to myself, or does that make sense
No,
to the rest of the board?
I think I'm going to come back to the rest of the board here for further discussion on this, but you brought up a really good point, Trustee Zyck, and I want to confirm something with Manager Recklouse. And I know Chief Pecora is not here, but are you convinced, Manager Recklouse, that Chief Pecora is confident that his entire team understands the Trust Act and all of those rules and obligations? In other words, what I'm getting at, is there any interference there or any fear that you think maybe his crew is potentially at risk on? Or do they understand everything that you explained to all of us here a few minutes ago?
So, Chief Pecora is not here, but this is a topic, especially in in recent weeks, we talk about regularly, including we had our regular one-on-one meeting this morning, and this really dominated that discussion. Yes, I can say that he is very confident that he and his team fully understand, are trained on, and equipped to ensure that they're operating within the constraints of the Trust Act. It's something that they talk about regularly, and it's not something that he wants to leave to chance.
Okay, thank you. All right, back to the board here. Who else on this side? Robin? Colin? You go ahead.
Just a couple things. I actually do agree with Trustee Zyck about getting some additional legal guidance of what can be done. In concept, I agree with what we're talking about in terms of basically caring about our residents and our community, and trying, to cause no harm, as they say. I was a little concerned, and maybe I misunderstood Trustee Manganaro's, some of the additional things that he stated that it sounded like it might put some burdens on our staff. And maybe I misunderstood that, but to have them have additional responsibilities that would be outside the realm of what their work is. And I certainly would not want to, put that pressure on them, and they have plenty of work they need to do. That's part of their job. And so I'm not sure if I misunderstood beyond letting our staff know what, in the broader sense, what, like things like in not just the police, but knowing about the Trust Act and so on, but that sort of thing. So that would just be my comment. I don't want to overburden staff with the issue if it's not something that they really, need to be dealing with on a regular basis.
Trustee Manganaro, if you want to respond to the clarification.
Yeah, I think and thank you for raising the question. I want to make sure I'm clear. I am not asking for additional burden on our staff. I think what I said was the opportunity to participate in those kinds of training, as I would wish that anyone in the village had opportunity to learn what they can do to help all of our community. I think the comment that I made was about the effort that our staff has put into the budget and the impacts on what we're trying to do with the budget, as far as how this could potentially in the future impact the pressures on us to increase property tax levies. So
Okay, I understood that part, but I guess I was a little confused about the other. So thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, Trustee Manganaro. Trustee Gilbert, you had a comment?
Sure. I don't have a whole lot of comments. I think what I'd like to do is make a motion to direct staff to research this a little bit and get back to us, and kind of so that we can sift through this a little bit more thoroughly and make a very educated decision as to what we should do. I don't know what that motion would look like, but maybe I just made it.
You did.
Okay.
I think you did.
All right.
I think you did.
Fair enough.
Second.
All right, there's a motion on the floor from Trustee Gilbert, second by Trustee Schwingbeck. Let me ask Is a motion appropriate tonight, since this was not on the agenda, since it's a directive to staff? Are we okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine. Mayor Tinaglia, the board can't take final action on anything here because it's not on the agenda, but a motion to direct, as Trustee Gilbert just made, and I do think it's sufficient. I think we
Okay,
understand
great.
the directive. It's perfectly appropriate.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, and just so I'm clear what the motion is, so we can make sure we're working on what the board wants us to work on. Is this a motion to look at, putting in, a guidelines, policies, ordinances, resolutions on kind of, what we would want, limitations we want to put on, ICE agents on public property? Is it about, research on holding educational sessions or, putting things on the website? I guess there's a lot of things that were raised. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what the direction of the board is here with this motion, if that's fair.
It's very fair. The purpose of my motion would be to focus on the, either the resolution or the ordinance. I think having some information provided to us as to the differences and how those play out, and what we can legally do in terms of restricting the use of ICE or Border Patrol agents' use of public property, in terms of the language that would be allowable. And also I'd be curious as to what my fellow trustees had talked about in terms of enforcement, and if there's any difference between those vehicles per se.
Okay, no, that helps quite a bit.
Okay, I don't know if anybody else has
Well,
anything
we have
else.
to ask Trustee
Yeah,
Schwingbeck, are you in agreement with that
Yeah,
directive?
and I do have.
Want to speak? I mean,
Yeah, I would.
because you haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, no, and hearing this for the first time tonight without really doing any research or looking into this, I guess, Randy, one thing, you had talked earlier about opportunities with the library. I think anytime you can educate our residents is a win-win. I wouldn't think that should be something that, as a village, we're doing. If the library is putting on those kind of educational opportunities, I just wouldn't want to burden staff with that. You had mentioned earlier about communicating through our website. I think anytime you can do that, it's a good thing. But I just wouldn't want you guys to be putting on educational classes if the library is going to be doing that. I mean, that would be one comment. The thing I don't know enough about to really get into any details tonight is, I think we've had a couple of incidents where ICE agents have come into our community. I don't know why they came in. I don't know who they were looking at or why they were detaining them. And I think without having some information, it's tough to even know what they were doing in our town. So I would want to try and better understand, how the whole process works. We've had, like I said, just 2 incidents, right? 2 or 3?
No, I guess a couple of comments on that. We don't know, because they don't necessarily have to report those incidences to us, so we don't know the total number. We're aware of, I believe, 3 to 4 incidences that the police department was made aware of, but there very well could be many more. We just don't know, because they're not required to report in with us. They're not required to, like any other federal agent, they don't have to demonstrate their probable cause or a warrant or anything like that to us. That's something that they handle on the federal level, so we wouldn't necessarily be aware.
So the thing that that I would have a question on, Trustee Dunnington, is when you're talking about village property. They haven't used any village property, have they? On any of these? Have they used any of these, any village property with any of these
What's that?
incidents?
There was,
Manager Eckhouse answer.
there was one incident that we're aware of where the DEA had made an arrest, and they were transferring the individual to ICE, and we believe that happened in a village parking lot.
Okay.
But we're not aware of any other instances that occurred on village property, unless you count roads and sidewalks, village property, when we're talking about actual village operated property.
And what would be, I guess when we look at that particular incident versus just waiting on one of our public roads to do whatever they were gonna do, what is the, what's the difference there?
Well,
What are we trying to?
I think there's, like, for example, and again, I'm not, this is something that we would work with the village attorney on to draw these distinctions. But like, for example, one distinction could be that, there's the parking lot that's behind the police station that's generally used for police vehicles, and that's not open to the general public.
Right.
And then there's the Vail Garage that's open to the public. Would we want to make it, it's very difficult to prevent anyone from using the Vail Garage because it's open to the public, just like a road or a sidewalk or whatever. But, putting restrictions on these other facilities, that could be one level. So there's a lot of different ways you could look at that, again, through either a policy resolution or ordinance, if you were so inclined.
Well, and I guess that's what I would like to learn a little bit more about, staff's thoughts.
Yep.
And ideas. So kind of piggybacking on what Trustee Gilbert said, I need some more information to be able to really dig into this and determine what we as a village can do. Because I certainly agree we want to protect our residents, but I want to try and understand, what's been happening and your thoughts.
Yeah, and that's something we can, if it's the will of the board, we can put that together. And again, the difficulty comes into enforcement as we know.
Right.
I want to give Trustee Dunnington an opportunity to, you would ask a
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
directly,
Right.
so go
Right.
right ahead.
Thank you so much. So a couple things. We talked about the library a little bit, and I think it's fantastic that the library is doing their upcoming program. But I do think it's important that the village does it as well. One reason is because I registered for a library event that was on Saturday. It was a Day of the Dead family celebration event. And the library had to cancel it on Saturday because of events that are happening. So I believe it was because they did not feel comfortable hosting that event. And so I think that there's a possibility that that could happen again at the library. And so I think it's even more important that the village shows leadership in having this kind of program. And then insofar as enforcement, I think what's been mostly recommended by attorneys is it would be judicial enforcement, so that we wouldn't be putting staff in a situation where they were up against any federal agents. And what was the other question that we talked? Where would it be?
Correct.
So I think it's important, like in the instance of the fire, we don't want them at the fire department, at Public Works, staging or getting ready to do enforcement at that. And I know that the police are well trained in the Trust Act. I'm not sure if the whole village staff is trained in the Trust Act as well. So I think that would be part of the piece, that everybody had training and that we wouldn't be using those kind of properties.
Okay.
And then the last comment I wanted to add was that ICE hasn't been particularly active in Arlington Heights, but it really has been in our neighboring communities in Mount Prospect and in Rolling Meadows. And so I think to be good neighbors, we want to make sure that they're not setting up here and going into our neighboring communities, because I think that Arlington Heights is very entwined with our neighbors. You know, our borders are, we have the map up right now, like our borders are pretty strange in some areas where you think, you don't even know what your town you're in exactly. And the way our school boundaries are, a lot of kids go to school in Rolling Meadows, they go to school in Prospect Heights, and so we're just very connected to our local communities. There's also with our youth sports that kind of crosses boundaries. So I think it's not just about specifically Arlington Heights residents, but our community that we need to be leaders and stand up and do the right thing.
I think trustee Santamaria had her hand up.
Oh, sure. The only comment that I had is Attorney Passman or Manager Recklaus, anything that comes to us, could we utilize the phrase federal civil enforcement instead of identifying specific agencies so that it's not discriminatory in any way?
Absolutely.
Okay,
And
thank you.
and that is, of those local regulations that I've seen, including the draft wheeling resolution, that's a phrase that's, I don't want to say become common, but it's been used pretty regularly among those communities that have done this. So that's, at least start with that and see if it's still appropriate based on what the board wants to do.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Thank you, Mayor. So, Randy, if either Arlington Heights or other communities did something like that with our property, couldn't they just set up anywhere on public property? I mean, I guess I'm struggling with, okay, we might stop them from going into a parking lot or the police department or the fire department, but they could set up anywhere, correct?
Yeah, and I don't want to get into too far into the legal analysis, but yeah, I mean, any federal law enforcement agency, their jurisdiction is the entire United States.
Right.
And so they, you know, I think the argument is it would be very, very difficult to prohibit them from using a space that is open to literally everybody.
Correct.
You know, and even on spaces that aren't open to literally everybody, the question is, how do you enforce its non-use? So, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's probably part of what Mr. Passman would look at in his analysis. But, I mean, that's the tricky part of this is, you know, they're allowed to drive down the roads, they're allowed to, you know, do a lot of things, obviously, that you know, that's necessary for their mission.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Back this way.
Thank
Trustee
you.
LaBedz?
Thank you. I have a comment and then a question related to what Trustee Dunnington was explaining in terms of our boundaries and how sometimes you don't know where they are. And then also related to what Trustee Manganaro said about the business community, even here in Arlington Heights, feeling the impact. So whether there is actual enforcement raids or whatever you want to call them happening specifically here, they have that effect both in the businesses as well as the fear of families and even residents in general too. And then the question I had was, Trustee Dunnington mentioned the Way Forward Act amendment. I'm not familiar with that, if you could explain.
Yeah, I mean, it was an amendment to the Trust Act, and Mr. Passman will be able to comment better, but my understanding is that the major component of that was prohibiting the use of local, you know, law enforcement facilities for use by federal agencies for detaining individuals based on their immigration status. I don't know if there was anything more you'd want to.
That's fair. It augmented the Trust Act more than anything, but the overall principle of both that and the Trust Act is, as Manager Recklaus stated and Trustee Dunnington as well, as local governments may not provide assistance to immigration efforts. That's kind of a very broad statement, but that's the gist of both those laws.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. We've all had a lot to say about this. We've been talking about it for 45 minutes almost. I think what I would like to do is just ask, we have a motion and a second, so we're going to take a quick vote here. But before we do that, I just want to be clear with what the motion was and or what staff's understanding of the motion is so that we're all clear on what we're voting on. So if someone Randy or Hart want to share exactly what you believe your
I
marching orders are?
I can jump in and then, you know, what I understood with Trustee Gilbert's clarification is, you know, some kind of analysis on what can and can't be done legally to restrict federal civil enforcement agents on village property, and also kind of what we, you know, how the enforcement of that might work, hypothetically. Is that
accurate or is
jive
there
with?
more?
Sounds good.
You guys
I don't
agree
know
on those two?
I don't want this
Passman, did
to
you have
affect
anything else?
anyone's vote, but this is my first motion. So just so you're,
So don't screw it up.
I'm trying not to, so I don't want to trip over any words here, but I think that's it. But if that's what the consensus is of the board, I mean,
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I see one more
I,
hand.
I do have a couple of questions for Manager Recklaus and Attorney Passman kind of stepping back to the form of whatever action we take, whether it's policy, resolution, or ordinance. Do each of those require a roll call vote by the board?
Policy would require no vote by the board. That's something that we can do internally without the board if we were so inclined.
Generally speaking, if it was a resolution, it would not require a roll call vote, although it could be done by roll call at the direction of the chair or upon request. An ordinance, if it was an ordinance that amended our village code, and not all ordinances have to amend the code, that would be by roll call vote. Other ordinances, perhaps not. But generally speaking, under no matter what it is, whenever, even when something doesn't require a roll call vote, if a member of the board wants a roll call vote, then it gets a roll call vote.
I think in that case, I would move to amend Trustee Gilbert's resolution to instruct the staff and village attorney to do the research as proposed, to propose an ordinance to the board that would allow us to prohibit the use of village property for federal, civil, immigration enforcement.
Second.
So, okay, so you have a motion to amend the motion to, want to repeat that back, Mr. Passman?
I understood that it's simply that the direction is to research and then come back with an ordinance as opposed to a resolution or some other format.
Okay, and a second by Trustee Dunnington. Is there any further discussion on that amendment?
Just as a point of clarification,
Recklaus.
I understood the original motion not to necessarily draft something, but merely to, you know, research it and provide options. And I just want to make sure that that was clear.
Correct. That
Whereas
was-
I had the same understanding of Trustee Manganaro's, you know, it was very clear.
can I comment?
Yes, you may.
I understand the position to try to go there, but what makes me uncomfortable is I don't feel like I have enough knowledge to be able to make the decision to send staff to do that right now, because I'm not sure what the research will bring to us. And I think that that's going to be necessary for me to make a confident vote on the amendment. That would be my concern.
Okay, and I think I would echo that, and I'm not going to say that I'm for or against anything. I think it's a little premature right now to go that far. So, but that's just my thought. So let's go ahead and take that vote for the amendment to the motion. And so, Maggie, if you could call the roll, please.
Trustee Manganaro,
Aye.
Trustee Dunnington,
Yes.
Trustee Santa Maria,
Yes.
Trustee Shirley, I'm sorry. Trustee Gilbert,
No.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
No.
Trustee LaBedz,
No.
Trustee Zyck,
No.
President Tinaglia.
No. So that amendment to the motion fails by a score of, if I'm not mistaken, 5-3. Is that correct? So now what we'll do is we'll go back to the original motion, which I think everyone here understands what those requests are. And we'll discuss this again at another date down the road here when that information is ready for us to review. So without any further discussion, let's call for a roll call vote on that motion made by Trustee Gilbert, seconded by Trustee Schwingbeck.
Trustee Gilbert,
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes?
Trustee Santa Maria,
Yes.
Trustee Zyck,
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington,
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro,
Aye.
Trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
President Tinaglia.
Yes. Okay, so that motion carries unanimously 8-0. So staff, you both know where we're going on confidently, and we'll carry on appropriately in the near future on this. Okay, is there anything else under recognitions and communications?
I have one more thing.
I did see a hand out of the corner, man. I've got that peripheral vision Go ahead.
In the meantime, while we get more information about a possible ordinance, can we add information to our village website for residents about the Trust Act? And also start looking at Know Your Rights training?
If for, when you're saying know your rights training, do you mean for the public provided by the?
Yes.
I mean, that again, that's kind of up to the board on doing that. Whether, I mean, I think there's different levels of that. There's know your rights training being provided as in a session by the village. There's putting something on the website, and then there's doing Trust Act training for the employees. I'll just say I have no problem doing Trust Act training for the employees. I think it's a good idea for everyone to be aware these things are heightened. If the board wants us to put things on the website in this, happy to do it. If the board wants us to, plan a session, we're happy to do it. But, I would defer to the board's direction on that, because I don't know that, I guess I'm not hearing what necessarily that there's a strong consensus one way or another, and I would love to hear what the board thinks about that.
So again, I think I'm not against any of this. I'm not in favor of one versus the other, but I still believe that it's important to get information that is relevant and specific so that we can do the right thing and not end up stepping into waters that we don't want to. If on the other hand, we want to help advertise for the library somehow by putting it on our sign out there or on our website. I mean, we're partners with the library, so if they're going to step up and do certain things, to me, that makes sense. We can certainly help them achieve some of their goals, but my own opinion would be just to kind of hold back just a little bit here until we can get the rest of this. Yeah.
Mayor, and Hart can correct me if I'm wrong, because these are not legislative actions, these are just directing staff. We could do just a quick show of hands among board members to establish a consensus on those items if that
We can do
would
that.
please the board. So
We can do that.
I'm just throwing that out there.
So the first question, I think, would be, do we want to help the library and post something on our website for a
Promote it,
given
sure.
date? All those in favor, raise your hand.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Oh, sure.
Do you guys know why the library had to cancel their programming? I mean, I think that's terrible. And so I think that, the library seems to do a great job with all of these presentations. I'm wondering if there isn't something that if they have a situation that forced them to cancel, I want to make sure that we wouldn't run into those same pitfalls if we were to try to present something. And a better solution might be us figuring out a backup plan in the event that the library's presentation is not able to proceed. But I don't know what those factors are. Again, I think we're missing a lot of pieces of the puzzle here in terms of
Let's
making
ask-
decisions.
Let's ask staff if they're aware of why that was canceled.
I'm not, I know, all I heard about it was from Trustee Dunnington, and I'm not saying what Trustee Dunnington said isn't accurate. I just don't have any further information beyond what you all have. I mean, I do know that the library does have the capability to do virtual planning as well. I mean, they do that all the time. So I don't know if that's something they're considering, but again, that's kind of their business.
I think it's great to try to promote the program. I just don't necessarily want that to backfire in any way, and they are inundated with problems they didn't anticipate. I don't know. I don't know what their roadblocks were for some of this programming.
I could share.
Okay.
Well, hang on one second. So in a case like this, would it make sense to talk to the library first?
Yeah,
before
I'd be happy to. I talk to
get-
Mr. Driscoll all the time. I'd be happy to put a call in tomorrow and find out the latest on that event, what happened, and future events if he's feeling that, whatever prevented that event would stymie future events as well. I mean, for sure, I can find that out.
Okay, and I think trustee Dunnington had a comment, so go ahead.
Sure. So the cancellation message that I received from the library was that in an abundance of caution due to recent events in surrounding communities, the Day of the Dead celebration scheduled for Saturday, November 1st at the library has been canceled. The library remains committed to honoring and celebrating this cultural tradition. We welcome the community to visit our community offerenda on display on the library's first floor through Sunday, November 9th. We apologize for any inconvenience and appreciate your understanding.
So that was for the Day of the Dead.
Celebration. A
Celebration.
family event.
Yeah, okay. Trustee LaBedz.
Thank you. I might be wrong about this, but I thought that the program for the library was on November 17th by Zoom. Is that, I don't know if it rings a bell with anybody.
Could be, yeah, and I just don't know. I don't want to provide bad information, but
But certainly programming that is on Zoom helps to, for security reasons for everybody involved.
All right, but again, we may be stepping over a line that the library doesn't want us to. So I think trustee Gilbert's point is well taken. So I'm not really sure if we should even be raising that question here tonight, even with a show of hands. Maybe we should just wait another week, gather some information on the 3 or 4 items that trustee Dunnington has brought up and trustee Manganaro has elaborated on. Does that make sense to everyone? No? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
I hear some heads nodding.
I am
for-
not entirely comfortable, I'm not comfortable at all abrogating this kind of responsibility to the library board. We're separate boards, we're separate taxing authorities. I think some of the context to what trustee Dunnington just stated is that the day before on Halloween, there was an incident in which a children's Halloween parade was affected by tear gas from these agencies. And it's understandable why they might want to exercise that caution. I think this is something where I believe it is important for the village in and of itself to stand up for our community.
All right. Trustee LaBedz.
I'm sorry, I just want to say I misspoke about the date of the library's virtual program. It's November 18th.
What day
Oh,
does that fall
that's
on?
a Tuesday, and it's open to everyone. You don't have to be a library card holder.
Okay. I see a hand up.
Sure. Could we co-sponsor the event so it's hosted by both of us, and then this could kind of discussion is kind of moot, and then we can
it's-
publicly put it on our Facebook and
I mean, it's up to the will of the board and up to the library. I mean, I don't know if the library is looking for co-sponsors. And again, it's up to the board if you want to do that. So, I mean, we had nothing to do with that event.
Sure.
So, I mean, but we certainly can promote an event that's another entity's event, to the extent that we want to. We have that ability as well, whether it's our event or someone else's.
And I think that's what we've been kind of talking about here for the last 15 minutes is whether or not we want to jump into that realm or not, or are we allowed to? Should we? Are we invited to? I mean, there's a couple different questions there. But right now, I'm getting the feeling that there's a handful of us that would really like to do more, but then there's maybe less interest from the rest of the board. So I'm going to make the recommendation, and you guys can agree with me or not, that we just put the brakes on a little bit here, not to say no to anything and not to demand anything just yet. But I think if staff can get back to us in a week or so with some education and talk to the library, talk to the rest of the village staff about education and Chief Pecora and his team, et cetera, and then we can have an item on the agenda to discuss things, all of these things, and be prepared to give better direction. Is that an okay statement from the board?
Yes.
I'm trying to be as Switzerland here as I can about all of this. Is that fair? Okay. If that is correct, then let's move on to the next item. Citizens to be heard is next, and right now I have 2 blue cards in my possession. And this is for items not on the agenda. We do have a consent agenda ahead and a new business item, so nothing on those. And the first person is Bridget Christofferson. And Bridget, come on up. If you don't mind, give us your full name and tell us, you've got, like everyone else, 3 minutes to tell us anything you want to tell us.
Yes, so my name is Bridget Christofferson. I live at 55 South Vale, and the construction is going on at 22 South Vale, which is an Arlington Heights property. And my question is to the board, can you approve that we can park with stickers on first and second floor? Because today they're working on the 4th floor and they have everything blocked off on the 2nd floor.
Okay. Great question that staff can probably answer pretty easily.
Yeah, what I can do, I know there's some different parking arrangements going on with the Vail Garage work. I don't know off the top of my head, unfortunately, what the current status is and if it's about to change. What I was gonna say is, if I can get your contact information, I can follow up with you on this tomorrow, because I can have someone who's more knowledgeable on the situation kind of inform our discussion.
Whether we can park on the 1st or 2nd floor? Is
Yeah,
that what
in
you're
terms of,
saying?
because I don't want to promise something that's gonna upset the construction process or confuse people, and I want to make sure that whatever we tell people, we're telling everybody at the same time. You know, if we're gonna make a change, you know, we want to make sure we're letting all the residents know that we're making a change. But I don't know what the current rules are, but I can get that for you pretty quick, and if you get me your contact information, we can talk
Well,
about it tomorrow.
today they're working on the 4th floor and they got everything blocked off on the 2nd floor where I usually park.
Yeah.
Bridget,
Yes,
do you have a way to give Manager Recklaus your personal information or take his business card?
Or you can take my card and we can talk more tomorrow,
then-
like I said. That way I can definitely get you the right information and and/or get you in contact with people that you can.
whether or not we can park on 1st or 2nd floor, you're going to give me the information tomorrow, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I want to make sure that I don't know the exact stage of that construction and what's going on, but,
They're working on the 4th floor, because I checked it today.
and so like I said, I can, why don't we follow up?
They have everything blocked off on the 2nd floor where I usually park. And on Sunday, I came home at 6:30, and there was no parking. I had to go back to the outside, to the 5th floor outside and park, as did everybody else behind me. And when I looked over my balcony, the whole 5th floor was taken up with cars.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I know when we're working on the garages, it is certainly an inconvenience and more so for the residents than it is for the visitors. I just don't want to give you wrong information because I know that there's been a plan worked out and I want to make sure I'm not communicating, especially since we're on television, that I'm telling people something wrong. And so what I would say is if you want to give me a call or shoot me an email tomorrow, or I'm happy to give you a call, then we can talk about this on the side and figure out what should be. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Bridget.
Very much.
The next and only other card I have is Don Lucky, Jr.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Good-
Nice
good
to see you back again. Thanks. Trustee Schwingbeck did a great job. No, and so did Trustee Gilbert. I have to say that, and that's my segue. I'm keeping it very short. I'm going to go over the 4 points. It's just an update. But, in terms of direction, asking that, looking forward, what he did to those children, always keep those children in mind because you know what? Adults are confused. Children are even just as much confused over the direction of what's going on in today's world. You address that, and as stoic and stern as you look, you melted my heart, you big brave guy. No, and I'm serious on how you reach to those kids. That's what we need more of, because that's what's going to take us to a 100-year stadium, not what's going on in this current time. No one can make plans for 2 weeks when we're looking at 100-year stadiums. There's my segue. Okay, the 2-minute warning, we're looking at 4 points with the update, the offset, the whole tax for the whole land. Okay, that's still on. That's our federal and state powers. I have no, talk to the governor, Department of Revenue, and state treasurer. They're aware of it. I'm comfortable with that. The roof, I'm going to be checking in on Nation's Roof next week to find specific answers. Yes, you're a sponsor. Yes, you're doing this and this. Back to the fill, we have some bad news. The $16 million that I had found and allocated in the shopping cart, $5 million for first responders, fire, and police each, and $1 million for the community closet. As I was mentioning to Mr. Schwingbeck, has all the details, and this is all out there. We didn't get that this year. I pushed them hard. Okay, I pushed them for $16 million. I don't think that they have it in their budget to give this year. Not that it's a bad idea. Sorry, I'm that tenacious, but I'm not sorry. There's no cap on this. And, now that this game ball is running and the Bears have made the announcement, it's game on, okay? Here's this part of my playbook openly shared, okay? We're looking to offset the $584 million in taxes as much as we can so that they can just move right on out here, pay their Chicago bill, and the rest is going on. And it has been going on, okay? So that was a little hiccup in time for us because, like I said, we still have our federal and state powers, no cap, and that's a long discussion all by itself. Okay, but the other part of the discussion, we also lost the $50,000 that we were getting just to show proof that we were helping bring solar power to Arlington Heights. We lost our $50,000 pledge. I found another $50,000, but as I mentioned to Trustee Schwingbeck in the earlier conversation, I had to turn that down for political reasons. Also for legal reasons, Mr. Reckless, because $1 from a political contribution or a religious organization, we would get away with it for 1 year, and that's it through our transparent reporting. All that would be taken away. So no, I know what the game plan is, and the game plan is go along. Still in progress. The last thing is I'm running out of time. Is E for energy. Okay, that was the segue from the solar people. But you know what? The ultimate game plan is I'm going to be looking at Swift Current Energy, which currently provides the solar farm energy from Black Diamond downstate to O'Hare. So all they would have to do is just run it up a little bit further, and here's your solar power. But those are long discussions. I'm way past my time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lucky. I appreciate it. That's it. Is there anyone else in the audience that wanted to address the board before we move on? I don't see any other hands. So we're going to go on to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda is a number of items that will be voted on with one vote. Is there anyone on the board that wants to remove an item for separate discussion? Is there anyone who wants to vote no or pass on any of these items? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to have a trustee remove an item off of this consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by trustee LaBedz, second by trustee Schwingbeck. Any further discussion? If not, a roll call vote, please. Maggie?
Trustee LaBedz?
Yes.
Trustee Schwingbeck?
Yes?
Trustee Anna Maria?
Yes.
Trustee Zyck?
Yes.
Trustee Dunnington?
Yes.
Trustee Manganaro?
Aye.
Trustee Gilbert?
Yes.
President Tinaglia?
Yes. All right, motion passes 8-0. And then the last item on the agenda here is new business, and for that, we're looking at 1500 East Euclid Avenue, a subdivision, PC number 25-008. It's a preliminary plat of subdivision and variation. Is the petitioner here? Come on up, introduce yourself with your name.
Good evening. My name is Robert Obrzut, O-B-R-Z-U-T.
And you're the owner of the property?
No, I'm not. I represent the owner.
Okay. All right. Manager Recklaus or Director
Ms. Rodman's going to have this one.
Who wants to bring this on?
I don't know if the petitioner wants, typically they would begin, but Ms. Rodman can follow.
Do you want, is it queued up for the petitioner's presentation or ours?
They don't have a formal presentation, but he may like to say something.
Okay. Is there anything you want to address to us before we let staff take it over?
Well, pretty much, this is a subdivision to a one lot. We want to donate or assign 5,500 square feet of the lot to the village. And we're asking the board for approval and also a variance because the lot does not meet the width, the standard width. So those are the two things that we're asking.
Okay. Well, we'll let Director Rodman give us a presentation, then go right ahead.
Okay. The property that is before you this evening is 1500 East Euclid Avenue. The lot is approximately 31,000 square feet. It is currently zoned R3 in our one-family dwelling district. There is an existing home on the lot, which you will see shortly. The action, as the petitioner indicated, is a request for a preliminary plat of subdivision as well as a variation from the minimum lot width requirement in the R3 zoning district. This is an aerial showing the property. You can see there are adjacent lots both to the east and north that are similar in size. The zoning relief, as I mentioned, is a request for the minimum lot width, So in the R3 zoning district, if the lot is over 30,000 square feet, they are required to have a 125-foot lot width. The existing lot is 110 feet, so the variation is just to allow the existing lot width to remain. This shows you the existing home, which is at the top of the page, and the proposed home, which is at the bottom. Again, the request before the board is for the preliminary plat of subdivision and the variation, but they are intending to build a new home on this lot, and so we did want to show you what the footprint of the new home would be, even though that is not under consideration this evening. This is the proposed home. It has received a positive recommendation from the Design Commission for approval. And this is the proposed plat of subdivision. So one of the reasons this needed to come forward, even though it is a single lot, is that this lot was not previously subdivided, which the zoning code requires. And because it wasn't previously subdivided, there was no right-of-way that was dedicated. So the right-of-way exists. The road obviously goes through. The other public improvements, such as the sidewalk and the street trees, are all in place. But that property has technically not been dedicated to the village. So while we are maintaining it, we don't technically own it. So this subdivision would provide for that dedication of the 5,500 square feet. The lots on either side have already made that dedication, so this just makes it. The Plan Commission did consider this request for a preliminary plat of subdivision and unanimously recommended approval. There are a few conditions that are subject to the approval. That would be standard conditions related to fees for detention and dedication, depending on the home size and configuration, and then, of course, compliance with all of our regular rules and regulations. So the motion before the board this evening is to direct staff and the village attorney to prepare final documents granting the zoning relief requested and subject to the recommended conditions as set forth in the agenda for this evening.
Thank you, Director Rodman. So you're aware of these conditions that were up, and you agree with all of them?
Yes, we are.
The 5 that I see here?
Yes.
And I think just want to make a clarification of language that was said earlier. You made a comment that you were donating the land. The proper terminology is dedication.
Dedication.
We all agree on that.
Yes.
Okay, very
Yes,
good. And this is an existing lot that happens to be substandard with the 110 rather than the 125. You're not reducing the width of the lot.
That's correct.
Okay. That's how I understand it. Are there any questions from this board? One.
Thank you.
Trustee LaBedz.
Of course. Well, my comment is it's just, and I know this came up in the Plan Commission, but it's weird to subdivide something that you're kind of not really subdividing because it's just one lot. But I'm actually glad they discussed it at the Plan Commission because reading the minutes helped me to sort of see where it's going with that. The question that I had is, so The part that's being dedicated is along Euclid, correct?
Correct.
And the roadway that is on the east side of the property, is that a village street?
That's a driveway.
Oh, that's a very long driveway, because there seems to be, in the aerial, there seems to be a house at the end.
There are two driveways, actually. One driveway that leads to the neighboring homes, and there's also a driveway leading to the current garage on the property.
It's a shared driveway.
Oh, so it's just it's a long shared driveway, basically.
Yes.
And there just happens to be a house at the north end of that piece of property. Okay. And so the owners of the houses, they are responsible for the plowing and so forth.
Correct. They are responsible for the maintenance.
Okay. Okay. That was my question. Thank you. Otherwise, I am in favor of the proposal.
I think that sounded like a motion.
I move to direct staff and the village attorney to prepare final documents granting the zoning relief requested and subject to the recommended conditions, all as set forth in the agenda materials for tonight's board meeting.
I'll second.
Motion made by trustee LaBedz, seconded by trustee Manganaro. Any further discussion?
I have another quick question for Director Rodman before we vote, and that is, I also noted the discussion at the Planning Commission, and there seemed to be, I guess, getting directly to the question, is there a path for avoiding some of the process in a situation like this? Yes, it's a legacy, it's substandard, the variance is required. The question seemed to be whether some of the preliminary could have been, or I guess my question is whether there's anything we could do as a board to avoid some of the preliminary in a situation like that.
It is a village code requirement that the lots have to be subdivided, so it would require an amendment to the subdivision code, which falls under the purview of the Plan Commission, but ultimately the village board. So that would be something that would need to be brought forward to the board for consideration.
Thank you.
I would agree with trustee Manganaro on that point too. Some of these things are so routine in terms of the subdivision for lots like this that go into the streets. I mean, there are more of them than you think. And to me, I wouldn't want to have a developer or a homeowner have to tread through the minutia of time and expense to do something that's so routine. So an exploration of maybe tweaking that code a little bit wouldn't be such a bad idea. But otherwise, I know that property, good luck to you. I think that'll be, looks like it's going to be fantastic. So
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, there's a motion in a second. Is there anyone from the audience that wanted to make a comment on this before we move on? Seeing none. Is this a voice vote or
You can do it by voice vote if you choose.
all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Good luck to you. I hope it all goes smoothly and swimmingly.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night.
All right. I'm going to call on Manager Recklaus for the next item.
Yes, I would request that the board enter in a closed session per 5 ILCS 120/2C11. Litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the village has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the board finds that an action is probable or imminent.
All right. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Zyck, seconded by trustee LaBedz. All those in favor say
No,
aye.
I'm sorry, you need a roll call
Well,
vote.
that's what I meant. A roll call vote, please, Maggie. Just making sure you're paying attention. Pass.
Trustee Zyck,
Yes.
trustee LaBedz,
Yes.
trustee Schwingbeck,
Yes.
trustee Santa Maria. Yes. Trustee Manganaro,
Aye.
trustee Dunnington,
Yes.
trustee Gilbert,
Yes.
President Tinaglia.
Yes. Okay, so we are in closed session and we will not be reporting out. I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.